It was a quiet Friday night, and the moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the sleepy town of Ashford. The streets were empty, save for a few distant cars driving down the main road. In a small, modest house on the edge of town, Emily sat in the living room with her two best friends, Mark and Sophie, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and half-drunk cans of soda. It was the perfect kind of night for their usual hangout, a night of talking about old rumors, ghost stories, and everything that made them feel just a little bit uneasy. Mark, always the instigator, leaned forward with a mischievous grin. "So, have you guys heard about the mirror game?" Sophie groaned, rolling her eyes. "Not that again. You know that's just a stupid myth, right?" Emily shifted uncomfortably on the couch, unsure of what Mark was about to say. She knew the game. It was the same one that had haunted her dreams ever since she was little. "What do you mean, the mirror game?" she asked, though she already had a sinking feeling in her stomach. Mark's grin widened, and he leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the discomfort he was causing. "You stand in front of a mirror, turn off the lights, and say a name 3 times. Bloody Mary, Candyman, whatever. Just a name. And then something happens." His voice lowered ominously. "They say the mirror shows you things that shouldn't be there." Sophie laughed nervously. "You're really trying to freak us out, huh?" But Emily didn't laugh. She didn't even smile. She was too busy staring at the reflection of her own face in the darkened window across the room. Something about the game had always unsettled her, but she couldn't put her finger on why. It was just a story, just a silly thing kids told each other to spook themselves. Still, she had heard the rumors. Some said it was a prank. Others swore they'd seen figures in the mirrors, faces that weren't their own, whispers that didn't come from their lips. Mark noticed her unease and, sensing an opportunity, pressed further. "Come on, Emily. You're not scared of a silly game, are you?" She forced herself to look away from the window, shaking her head. "I'm not scared. I just don't think it's a good idea." But Sophie, ever the skeptic, stood up. "It's just a stupid myth. I'll do it if you're both too chicken." She grinned, but her eyes flickered with something Emily couldn't quite place. Was it excitement or fear? Either way, Sophie was determined. "Fine," Emily muttered, standing up as well. She wasn't about to let Sophie do it alone. "But I'm not doing the whole say the name thing." The 3 of them moved into the bathroom, the small, dimly lit room with the old mirror that had been there for years. The bulb above the sink flickered as they entered, casting brief shadows that danced along the cracked tile. Emily felt the air grow heavier as they gathered around the mirror, the 3 of them standing close, but not touching, the silence pressing in on them. Sophie grinned, her reflection staring back at her with an odd intensity. "Okay, here goes." She turned off the lights, and the room was plunged into a thick, oppressive darkness, broken only by the faint outline of their reflections in the mirror. Mark's breath seemed louder than it should have been, his shallow inhale like a gust of wind in the quiet room. Emily's heart began to pound in her chest as Sophie muttered, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." For a moment, nothing happened. The darkness hung thick, and the mirror reflected the 3 of them, standing there, just their normal, everyday selves. Emily almost laughed, relieved. It was just a game, just a stupid myth. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw something shift in the reflection, a flicker, like movement in the mirror. where none should have been. Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat. It was subtle at first. A shadow? Or was it a figure? But then, the reflection of Sophie's face seemed wrong. It wasn't quite her. The eyes were too wide, the mouth twisted into something grotesque, stretching unnaturally. "Stop it, Sophie," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "This isn't funny." But Sophie didn't respond. Mark turned to look at her, his face pale in the dim light. "Sophie, cut it out. This isn't funny anymore." The air in the room felt cold, far colder than it should have been. Emily's hands were shaking, her heart thumping louder now, drowning out everything else. Then, without warning, the reflection of Sophie in the mirror opened its mouth, far too wide, and let out a sound that wasn't human. It was a low, guttural hiss, like something scraping against glass from the other side. "Let's get out of here," Mark said, his voice cracking. They all stepped back, but as they did, Emily's eyes were drawn to the mirror one last time. She saw her own reflection, but it wasn't just her anymore. The mirror showed something behind her, a figure, its face pale, its eyes hollow, its hands reaching out from the darkness. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was real, and it was staring directly at her. Sophie screamed, but it was already too late. The door slammed shut behind them, and the lights flickered back on. Emily turned, gasping for breath, but the mirror was empty. Nothing was there. No twisted reflection, no shadowy figure. Mark, shaking, grabbed Sophie's arm, pulling her away from the bathroom door. "We need to leave. Now." But as they left the house later that night, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them, something that would always be there, lurking in the reflection, waiting. It was only when she glanced into the side mirror of the car on the drive home that she saw it again, a figure in the glass, pale, hollow-eyed, and smiling. She never spoke about it again, but every night as she stared into her own reflection, she would feel those cold eyes watching her from behind. And every night, she would wonder if the mirror game was really over, or if something had been unleashed, something that would never let her go.